Welcome to MCN and welcome to this special awards video. I'm joined today by Michael Guy, who is our sports editor and our adventure and off-road specialist on MCN, and Carl Stevens, who is one of our expert road testers. And we're here to talk about these three bikes: the Panigale V4S, Diablo V4 and the Multistrada V4 Rally. So welcome to MCN's Sports Bike of the Year 2023. For the second year running as well, it's the Panigale V4S, which is sort of the epitome of the brilliance and pointlessness and extraordinarily sexiness that's all wrapped into this one single package. It's a gorgeous thing to behold, but it's absolutely packed full of electricity and power whilst being lighter than it's ever been. So we're talking about 213 brake horsepower, 195.5 kilos ready to ride. It's an extraordinary package, but while it sort of sounds like it ought to be too much for the road and the track, and maybe too much for us mere mortals, actually it's surprisingly good to ride and surprisingly easy to ride. And no one knows more about that than Carl, who was actually on the launch for this bike at Jerez. We're not jealous at all. So rolling out a pit lane, first time on the bike, how did it feel?
I've got to say, it blew me away. So the first time we actually rode out a pit lane, it was wet, and in wet mode it's restricted on power, and I could not believe I was sitting on a fire breathing Panigale V4. The first iteration was brutal, and every iteration since has just got easier to ride. And when
That's incredible, isn't it? Because they put more and more power in, take more and more weight out, more electronics, but actually they do get easier to ride, don't they, every single iteration?
I think that's the beauty of it. If you look at a spec sheet, you could quite easily be sort of blown away. You could quite easily get lost in that power, in that torque, in the weight figures. But you jump on it and it can be as easy to ride as you want. Like simple little things like the way that Ducati have mapped the electronics and the way that the power is delivered, especially in the lower gears. It makes it such an easy bike to ride. And in turn, that actually allows you to ride faster, because you're not focusing on if it's going to throw you to the sky or little things like that. And they complete the package with some of the most incredible components. Like those Brembos are some of the best standard brakes in the business. They offer so much stopping power, and the way that the ABS is dialed in, it's just sublime. You don't get any intrusion whatsoever on track, which is incredible, even in hard braking zones. It's amazing how something of this power, of this stature, can make someone of our level feel so much like a riding god. Yet on the launch, we was riding alongside Jorge Martin and Johan Zarco, and the shapes that those boys were throwing on.
Did you show them the way around?
I didn't even see them.
Did you tap the tail at all? Just follow me for a couple of laps.
The way that the window that this bike works in is just incredible, because they were on bog standard bikes and they were able to maximise the potential of it and have as much fun as we were having. And
of course, semi-active suspension on this one as well. So
yeah, and the semi-active suspension feels so refined as well. Alongside the little tweaks they've done with the chassis, it feels just a bit sort of softer to ride. It feels, especially if you're running at a slower speed, it feels a lot more at home, whereas the old ones, you really had to ride them hard and sort of tie them in knots to get the best out of them.
You couldn't really feel like the chassis was coming alive, could you? You had to push it so hard that it's kind of not very rewarding to ride, whereas now the semi-active gives you that ability to dial it down and to match the circumstances you're riding in and the situation you're riding, which of course is great when you take it to the road.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of it. Even though it's still a fire-breathing beast, it's still packing more power and torque than most of us know what to do with. It's still user-friendly, it's easy to ride, and that is exactly why it's won our Sports Bike of the Year. It's just an incredible machine that caters for every ability and does so with incredible ease.
So welcome to MCN's Adventure Bike of the Year, which this year, as you've probably guessed, is Ducati's Multistrada V4 Rally. Now we actually have two categories for adventure, sub and over 1000cc, and obviously this is firmly in the over 1000cc category. 168 brake horsepower, more than enough for an adventure bike, but in a package that's so usable that it actually, you don't realise you've got all that on tap. Not at least until you really open it up. Now, it's not often that our extremely experienced test team comes back from a launch or a test, walks into the office and says, do you know what, that might actually be the best motorcycle I've ever ridden. And yet that's happened now on 3 occasions with different people who've gone out and ridden this bike for the first time. And one of them was Michael, who was lucky enough to go and do the launch for this bike earlier in the year. So how did you find it? You know, you've arrived on the launch location, you've jumped on what appears to be a fairly large and unwieldy adventure bike. How did it go?
Yeah, so the launch was in Sardinia, and anyone knows Sardinia, it's a beautiful place to ride because it's the roads are just stunning, well surfaced, but just constant changes of direction. Yep. And like you say, it is a big motorbike, but from the moment you jump on it, just the sort of poise it's got, the balance of the bike, just works so well. The way that the power is delivered, because it's a V4, it's obviously it's got a lot of power throughout the rev range.
Absolutely,
but it's that beautiful connection at the bottom that doesn't make it intimidating. Yet when you start spinning, you go, oh right, we're now on a close to 170 horsepower V4, and the thing howls and the thing just goes, and it's a real pleasure to ride.
It's almost superbike aggressive, isn't it? Right at the very top end of the rev range, and it howls like you wouldn't believe. The sound is absolutely fantastic. Obviously being a V4 helps with that. But yeah, the delivery is incredible, and yet at low revs it's so docile.
Really tame.
And of course at properly low revs, so if you're bimbling around in town, actually the rear bank deactivates.
That's right.
So, you know, sub 4,000 RPM, you're running on 2 cylinders, not on 4.
Yep.
And obviously that helps with heat management as well, so that you don't cook. But it's a remarkably refined engine, isn't it?
I mean, and that also really sort of bore out when we got off-road. So we were kind of on sort of twin track, but, you know, quite rough, you know, and reasonable sort of speed, you know, sort of second, third gear. But like I say, just that throttle connection down the bottom, the way that you could just pick the throttle up, and if you wanted to sort of, you know, get the spin back to sort of brake traction and help turn the bike, you just felt like it was really in your hands. I think the way, as a complete package, the way that the engine works with the electronic suspension and just with the overall balance of the bike, I think one of the things, you know, you mentioned the fact that we came back from the launch and it was like, it was hard to fault, you know, genuinely hard to fault, and that is our job, you know, to try and pick holes in these things. But I think it was the sort of combination and the way that everything worked with real harmony with each other that made it such a sort of a, you know, it's up the game in the class in what is already a very competitive, hardly fought, important class for all the manufacturers. Yeah,
I mean, it's sort of beaten BMW at its own game, really, in that the R1250 GS Adventure, which is, you know, the closest direct rival to this, sort of part of its magic has always been that no single part of it is outstanding on its own. So it's that sort of holistic approach of just everything does its job, and the overall package is incredible. And yet this managed to take that and step it on again. It's an extraordinary motorcycle. And Michael, obviously you're talking about riding off-road there, and of course that's again where the electronics come in on this bike. So obviously you've got enduro mode on this, so allows you to let the front wheel lift a bit more and let the rear drift, ABS off. How do the modes really help you on road and off-road?
Oh, they are marked differences. You know, some of these bikes, they have a lot of modes, and you know they kind of just sort of blurring into each other. To be honest, this is clear. You know, the way that the power comes in enduro mode, the way that it gives you that just extra sort of dynamic feel. You know, they've clearly done a lot of homework. They've clearly, you know, like you mentioned the GS. The GS has been sort of top of this tree for so long now.
Absolutely.
We've spoken about manufacturers coming in and raising the game and overtaking the GS, and no one's been able to.
No.
Until now, and that is some achievement. Like you said, it's everything works, but now the bar has literally been raised above the GS in practically every area. So yeah, it works as well in an off-road setting as it does in an aggressive road setting, and that is down to the electronics, not only of the engine mapping but also of the electronic suspension.
And that's remarkable for a bike of this scale as well, isn't it? And 30-litre tank on there as well. But they even managed to, because the tank is not skinned, it's an aluminium tank, and so actually the dimension is the same as the standard V4S, which is extraordinary. So you don't really even notice that you're on the bigger bike. But yeah, it's a mind-boggling package that is so easy to ride, but marries to anybody's riding ability. So whether you're sort of not quite starting out, but certainly at the beginning of your riding career, or you're an expert level rider, it can do it all with you and for you. And that's why it was our Adventure Bike of the Year this year.
Right,
incredible package. So welcome to MCN's Cruiser of the Year, the Diavel V4, a new model for this year, in fact. So this category is extremely broad. It covers everything from sort of your stereotypical American big full dress cruisers, all the way to the pure sort of performance end almost of the market. And that segment where performance is king has really been completely defined by the Diavel. So when it first came out as a V-twin, it blew everyone away with enormous stomp and performance, married to this cruisery aesthetic, and obviously one of the fattest rear tyres in the game. It's a remarkable thing to ride, and we did the launch in Abu Dhabi. Michael Neves was out there on that, and I think what blew us away really was just how easy it is to get all that power down. I mean, we're talking 166 brake horsepower, 236 kilos, so it's not the lightest thing on earth, but in cruiser terms, it's really quite good. But yeah, I think it's that blend, isn't it, of performance and style that really sets it apart.
And the fact that it's been pushed on so far in its V4 guise, I mean, it's
absolutely
15 kilos less than the previous model, and that makes such a difference to the overall package.
Huge.
It's such an impressive machine because, as Michael said on the launch, it does so much that you wouldn't expect it to be able to do, and so well.
Yeah.
The fact that Ducati have managed to package up a cruiser and give it so much performance and so much capability, that's why it's such a worthy winner, and that's without even mentioning how usable it is. I mean,
absolutely.
it's got the engine from the Multistrada essentially, which also has the rear bag deactivation, so it's much more manageable, it's better on fuel.
Better heat management.
Yeah, it's just
so more comfortable.
Such a better package, and that's why it's such a worthy winner, isn't it?
Absolutely. And remarkable how well these bikes actually steer and handle. I mean, you look at that fat rear tyre and you think that's not going around a corner anytime soon. And yet they steer almost like a big naked, don't they? It's remarkable. So obviously, all bikes these days are kind of defined by the amount of electronics that they have on them as well. And when you've got this amount of power and torque and in a fairly sort of low and raked out bike, obviously that's even more important, isn't it?
I think that's really part of what makes the Diavel so good. It's part of what makes Ducati so good and why they've got so many bikes at the top of so many different sectors. The electronics are more than just a little hand on your shoulder. There's something that truly transforms the way that you're able to ride a bike, and the way that the electronics look after this push it almost into the next sector, push it from a cruiser to a real genuine sporty machine that transcends what it looks like.
Absolutely. And obviously talking about electronics, having great ABS and traction control on a bike that's sort of long and low, a lot of cruisers just push the front under heavy braking, and obviously the opportunity to spin up that back tyre is huge. So the electronics are sort of more important maybe on a bike like this than they almost are on a naked or a super naked.
Exactly that, and it's the same with the components. Having them big Brembos, being able to stop a bike of this weight and of this size, it's no easy task. And the way that Ducati managed to put a whole package together with suspension, with brakes, with electronics, with an engine that is so refined is
5 kilos lighter, just the engine than the V-twin. So two extra cylinders, 5 kilos less.
It's incredible what they've done, and for all of them reasons, it is a seriously worthy winner.
Absolutely, and hence that's why it is our Cruiser of the Year 2023. So as well as winning 3 awards this year for the Panigale V4S, for the Diavel V4 and for the Multistrada V4 Rally, Ducati have also won MCN's award for Manufacturer of the Year this year. Now, some years this award is given by dint of the volume of award wins in all the different categories. Some years it's even just for a single defining moment of absolute genius. But this year with Ducati, it's sort of a mix of everything really. I mean, clearly they've won 3 awards in the categories, which is an incredible result for any manufacturer. But on top of that, they've had a phenomenal year of sales success and corporate success, if you like. So they exceeded €1 billion sales for the first time in the company's history, sold over 61,500 bikes last year, which makes them a really significant player for what was once a very niche brand. But they've gone further than that. So, everything about the company in terms of how they work, how they produce bikes, and I actually went to the factory a couple of months ago to watch multistradas being built, which was a fascinating experience. But everything about the way the company operates has really stepped up, hasn't it, over the last 5 years particularly. And this is the 4th time in a row that they've won the Manufacturer of the Year award, because of that consistent growth and delivery of ever better products basically within the categories. But on top of that, they've also had an absolute revelation in terms of their ability to dominate in racing. And they've gone from being a key contender to being almost unbeatable. I mean, talk to us, Michael, about what they've done really in sport over the last sort of 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, I mean, starting with MotoGP, which is such a fiercely competitive class where all the manufacturers are there, all trying to, gain extra kudos and show the world just how good their product is. Ducati have been in MotoGP for a long time. They have had their struggles, to be perfectly honest, but over the last few years they have just stepped up through genius engineering, through absolute unwavering commitment to the class, and now we're in a situation where they've ended a drought that went back from 2007, Casey Stoner to Pecco Bagnaia winning the championship in 2022 and currently leading the standings in 2023. They've done this through, like I said, the absolute level of commitment to the class, 8 bikes on the grid, but they are pushing the limits. They've kind of overtaken the Japanese in this sense.
Oh, massively. Yeah.
And they are, at the front. Their satellite bikes are also capable of running at the front. You get the feeling there is no letting off. They are just pushing absolute 100% ongoing. And then you go to World Superbikes again. World Superbike is a class that Ducati are so synonymous with. They have been since the launch, and series started back in 1988. But they incredibly hadn't won since 2012 with Carlos Checa, which is a lot of derivatives of Panigale ago.
All of them.
Yeah, yeah. So, and now they've won in 2022 with Alvaro Bautista. Bautista is now on fire again in 2023 and looking fairly unstoppable. And that's the bike.
Yep.
And you can really see that connection. And also they're having a stellar year in British Superbikes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, they haven't won in British Superbikes for a number of years, and now they're 1st and 2nd in the championship and looking very, very strong. So from a sport point of view, they are kind of doing exactly what they're doing on the road, leading by example, delivering super high tech consistently but across the board, and as a result they're doing an awful lot of winning.
And it's incredible, isn't it? Because BSB, WSB, MotoGP, I mean, it's all racing, but actually that's 3 remarkably different classes going to remarkably different tracks with a huge variety of challenges. So to be able to deliver that breadth is quite extraordinary, really.
Yep.
I mean, as you say, 2 of them using that bike as the base effectively. But obviously MotoGP is complete prototype class, and obviously the development place for an awful lot of the electronics that trickle down through actually all of these bikes.
Yep.
But as you say, it completely mirrors what they're doing in the road arena, because you look at the breadth that's on offer here, it's absolutely extraordinary. You've got a class-leading superbike, a class-leading cruiser, and a class-leading adventure bike.
Yep.
All from the same manufacturer, which is just extraordinary. And as we've said, that's being reflected in the sales as well. And as Michael says, the most impressive thing is that they're at the top, but there's absolutely no sign of slowing down or taking their hand off the throttle. It's full gas and all the way to the summit. Incredible. And that's why they're Manufacturer of the Year again this year. Well deserved.